Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. One Piece. I ate forest mythical fruit and my code name is Green Bull. Chapter 41. Hey, you guys are really good at running. It made me run several times before I could catch up with you. Suddenly a voice sounded, and the running team suddenly stopped. They looked at the man in a Navy uniform and coat who appeared in front of them in shock. Navy. Everyone was frightened when they saw a Navy blocking their way, even one who looked very young. The young man in charge changed his expression and asked, "I wonder why this Navy lord stopped us." "You should know why we stopped you. Don't try to get away with it. Your companion has been caught by us. It's useless even if you deny it." He turned his eyes around and saw that it was indeed 21 people, so that was the right one. When these people heard that Waggle might be arrested, many of them showed panic, and the young man refuted again. "We really don't know what the Navy master is talking about. I'm sorry, we have to leave. Please give us some room." Really stubborn. John sighed softly. These people really didn't cry until they saw the coffin. It was useless no matter how much they said. "Since you won't cooperate, then I can only use force." As soon as he finished speaking, the young man suddenly shouted, "Do it." Everyone who had been prepared all the time took action immediately. The nearest people, including the young man who was drinking loudly, rushed towards John like a hungry tiger. Looking at the several young and strong men who were attacking, John grinned, "Can you finally bear it?" Snapped. He suddenly snapped his fingers, and there was no movement after that. The surrounding branches seemed to have turned into vines, stretched instantly, and tied up all the men who were attacking. Moreover, they were tied up in circles, giving them no chance to break free. This also caused the men to lose their support and fall to the ground with a bang. "You'd better stay still, or you'll end up like them." After tying up these people, John saw the others were about to make a move and immediately warned them. And while he was talking, he could see the branches of the surrounding trees twisting and stretching, as if they were like tentacles, ready to attack at any time. He originally wanted to save people, but when faced with those scary branches and vines, he suddenly didn't dare to move. "Your Navy is too bullying. We just want to restore the lost history. Why are you targeting us like this?" The young man who was tied up yelled at John angrily. John's expression was calm. "It's useless for you to yell at me. I'm just following orders. It's true to search for history. But the strange thing is that you have violated a taboo. It's not the Navy that wants to take you." "That's right. I believe you should be very clear." Perhaps seeing that John was not so vicious, the man's eyes flickered a few times and he took a breath. "Master of the Navy, I can see that you are not that kind of evil person. We are really just archaeologists, just looking for history. We are all innocent people. You just pretended that you didn't see us and let us go." "Okay. Well," John sighed in his heart. Of course he knew that these people were not bad people, but a group of scholars with ideals and goals, but who made them touch the taboos of the world government. He sympathized with these scholars, but he did not want to let them go. He was a soldier, and it was his duty to obey orders. Capturing them was an order issued by the 5 old stars of the world government. If he were to let him go now, he would have to be responsible after being found out. Even if he had the support of Lieutenant General it would be difficult for him to bear the consequences. I remember that in the anime, there was a giant lieutenant general who secretly released a historian, and later tried to save O'Hara, but the final result was his death. Even a lieutenant general level existence would suffer such a heavy price if he violated such a taboo. John was just a dispensable second lieutenant now, and he did not want to follow the fate of the giant lieutenant general. "It's impossible to let you go. I don't have that much power and energy." Seeing that John really wouldn't let them go, the young man finally couldn't help it and shouted at the others, "Run, you guys run." After roaring, he suddenly exerted force, broke the branches that trapped him, and slammed into John. Too naive. Although this man had a few tricks up his sleeve, it was obvious that he couldn't make any trouble in front of John. Shave. John, who has mastered the 6 moves, used shout to instantly move to the person's back and knock him down with a sudden blow. Looking forward, I saw those who were not tied up were fleeing in all directions. "Wherever there are trees, that's my home court. None of you can escape." The branches of the surrounding trees all moved together. In just 10 seconds, those people were all caught and hung in the air. The dense branches were aimed at them, making them unable to move and unable to move. Dare to move. Am I considered a dryad grandmother now? John smiled to himself. The ability he was using now was indeed a bit like a tree demon. After more than a year of research and development, John has a full understanding of his abilities. He doesn't know what specific fruit this devil fruit is, but it is definitely extremely powerful. Not only can he control the growth of plants, but he can also control plant attacks. He can control all plants. At least so far, he has not reached the plants that he cannot control, whether they are flowers, trees, succulents, etc. Even various plants, aquatic plants, etc. in the water can control their growth and attack as long as the distance is sufficient. Similarly, he can also turn himself into a plant. No, to be precise, after eating the fruit, he becomes a special plant. He can grow flowers, plants and trees from his body, and he can also turn his body into a plant to attack. Absorbing the energy of plants is also one of the fruit's abilities. However, if you want to maximize the absorption, you need the help of hockey. The more powerful the plant, the more domineering communication is needed, otherwise the energy absorbed will be much less. It is really easy for John to control tree branches to attack like this. The Tide people were struggling fiercely, resisting and cursing, but no matter what they did, John would not let them down. You just wait here, my people will be here soon, and you will be sent to the CP9 people soon. He didn't mind catching these people, but he didn't want to personally kill these ideal scholars and hand them over to CP9. As for what would happen to them, that was not his concern. No, do not want. The young man spoke again. After being knocked to the ground by John, he raised his head vigorously and looked at John. Let them go, please let them go. You can arrest me, but let them go. They are all innocent. If they are handed over to the world government, they will all die. Maybe, but what does that have to do with me? Don't blame me for being selfish. This is how the world is. There is no mercy or soft-heartedness. John will not risk his own future to save these people. If one day something like this happens to him, he will not beg others to spare him. Well, my people will be here soon. Searching naval soldiers are already heading in this direction and will arrive soon. Captain, we can't escape. Even if we all die, it doesn't matter, but Orbia can't die. Yes, Captain, let's find a way to save Orbia. The few people who were tied up spoke to their captain, the young man. The young man who was called the captain looked nervous. The Orbia they were talking about was none other than his wife. When he came out, he took his wife with him, but a few months ago, the situation changed. His wife was pregnant, which is why his companion said so. But he really didn't know how to speak. On the one hand, it was his wife, but the others were also companions. How could he just do it for his wife and not care about others? On the other hand, he felt that the Navy in front of him might not agree easily. But this hesitation only lasted for a moment. For the sake of his wife and unborn child, he couldn't care so much. Master of the Navy, you can capture me and kill me. I will never resist, but I have a request. Let my wife go. She is not from the archaeological team and is not your target. Let her go. Not from the archaeological team. Do you think I would believe it? John naturally heard what they just said, but he did not believe that the woman they said was innocent. The young man could only say, my wife is really not from the archaeological team, and she is pregnant. Please, please let her go. Pregnant? John looked shocked and glanced at someone hanging on the tree. That was the only woman. He glanced at her with a domineering look, and sure enough, what he heard was not one voice, but two voices. That person didn't lie. There was indeed another voice in this woman's belly, and listening to the voice, the child was already close to death. Taking shape as already a real life. John never thought about killing them, but he also knew that once he handed these people over to CP9, they would never survive, but even so, he had nothing to feel guilty about. Everyone is an adult and must be responsible for what they do. They know that doing so is life-threatening, but they still do it, which shows that they have thought about the consequences and are prepared. This is their own choice, and John will not feel guilty, even for the pregnant woman. But listening to the fragile heartbeat and the breathing that didn't sound like a person who was born, he suddenly felt a little guilty. Children should not bear the consequences of what adults have done wrong. If this woman is handed over to CP9, she and the child in her belly will definitely not survive. A life was about to be born, which made John hesitate. Can a person like me be so merciful? Ever since he came to this world, John has been telling himself subconsciously that in this cruel world, he must be ruthless. Only by being ruthless can he survive better. So even though he has never actually killed anyone with his own hands so far, if there is a chance, he will definitely not be soft and he will definitely be able to kill someone. If a man does not serve himself, he will be punished by heaven and earth. Although John has not reached this level, he is definitely a selfish person and does everything for his own benefit. The branch that tied the pregnant woman was slowly released. After the woman was freed, she immediately ran to her husband's side, crying, "I will only make an exception once, not for the sake of your begging for mercy, but for the sake of the child in her belly. I don't want a baby to be stillborn before it has time to open its eyes to see the world. After all, it took me many reincarnations to come to this world, and I should at least see this world." I don't know why, but John suddenly expressed such emotion. In the past, he definitely didn't believe in the theory of reincarnation. But now even time travel has appeared. Who knows if there is reincarnation? Even if there is not, it is still a reason to convince myself. I don't know if this is a woman's kindness or a normal human nature. Thanks, thanks. The man who was angry just now was only filled with strong gratitude now. He knew that this was John's biggest concession. You only have 2 minutes. If you haven't left after 2 minutes, don't blame me for going back on my word. John warned. The couple hugged each other and cried. After seeing John's strength, they had accepted their fate and never thought of resisting again. Now that they could save one person, they were already satisfied. John didn't listen to what they said, and it wasn't until 2 minutes passed that he looked at the two men. Seeing John's gaze, the man became cruel and shouted, "Albia, go quickly, go quickly." The woman named Albia didn't want to leave her husband, but thinking of her current situation, she gritted her teeth and slowly backed away, but still looked at her husband with tears in her eyes. She knew that this was the last time they would be apart. "Albia, child, I have already thought of a name, Robin, let's call her Robin." Robin. The first person to react was not the woman, but John, who looked at the couple in disbelief. Robin, this is such a familiar name, especially in the world of One Piece. Anyone who has watched One Piece will be unfamiliar with this name. Robin, is this really Nico Robin? John was very shocked. Thinking about the identity of this couple, they were from O'Hara, and the rather familiar name of Albia, couldn't they be Nicole Robin? When John heard the name Albia before, he didn't feel it yet, but now that Robin appeared, he instantly confirmed the identity of this woman, Robin's mother, Nicole Albia. It was so shocking, I almost strangled Nicole Robin. John was really filled with emotion when he thought that if he hadn't been soft-hearted for a moment, the very popular Nicole Robin would not exist in the future. Looking at Albia, who was about to leave, perhaps because of Robin, John suddenly spoke up to remind her. "If you want to survive, don't leave this island in a hurry. This place has been sealed off. You will be safer if you stay on this island." I don't know if Orbia, who left, understood it. John didn't care very much. He had already provided help. If Robin was lucky, Orbia would not be discovered. After Albia left, John warned these archaeologists again. "That woman, just treat her as if she never existed and is not one of you. If the news leaks out, it won't have much impact on me, but you and that woman will be miserable. Do you understand?" These archaeologists are quite sensible, and after listening to John's words, they all made guarantees. Soon, Pemberton brought people here, and was shocked to learn that John had captured all the archaeologists alone. Looking at the scholars who were taken away by the soldiers, all of them looked like they were willing to die generously. John shook his head repeatedly. This group of people fully demonstrated two qualities. The first is, if you don't want to die, you won't die. The second is, for the sake of ideals and goals, you will not regret it even if you die. Not to mention contempt and respect, John just couldn't agree with their ideas and practices. In his opinion, before you have no strength, the best way is to live in obscurity. When you have enough strength, you can talk about ideals, goals, etc. But that's how human beings are. Everyone has different ideas and chooses different paths. He felt that they were seeking death, and perhaps they also felt that he was pathetic. From different angles, they saw different things. John sighed slightly. He felt that he had more emotions today than in the past few years combined. Pemberton took those people to handover with the CP9 people. John did not go there. He already knew what would happen to those people. Although he would not feel guilty, he still did not want to see it with his own eyes. When he came back after dealing with all this, Pemberton said to John depressedly, "John, it looks like we have to stay on this island for 2 days." "What's wrong?" John asked in surprise. "Some of those archaeologists escaped by boat. Lieutenant General Noel led a large force to pursue them. Those who stayed behind told us that the surrounding branches have been notified and warships will be sent over to allow us to return to our headquarters." "I see." John was not surprised. Many of those scholars were smart, and it was normal for them to be able to escape partially. However, Lieutenant General Noel did not wait for them and went straight to pursue them. It seemed that it was the guy from Spangdine who urged him. "But that's fine. It would be easy for them to drive back after a warship arrives in 2 days. Then just wait." This lasted for 3 days. John, who had nothing to do, followed Pemberton around the towns on the island. Although the Navy arrested archaeologists before, it obviously did not affect the residents of this island. They still live how they want. At dusk on the 3rd day, John and the others finally arrived at the warship from the G6 branch of the Navy. It is strange to say that there were originally 5 teams chasing the archaeologists, but in the end, only John and his team were caught. The other archaeological teams all escaped. So in the end, only a group of them stayed on the island, and the rest either pursued them on warships or other ships. "Hello, Second Lieutenant John, I am Major Matt from the G6 branch. While we were cruising, we received an order from the headquarters to transport you to the headquarters. This is a cruise ship from the G6 branch. Because it is the closest to here, it was sent to pick up John and his team." Major Matt. John and the others all saluted respectfully. The naval branch of the Grand Line, whose name starts with G, has the same military rank as the headquarters. Major Matt is several ranks higher than them, so saluting is inevitable. "You don't have to be like this, Second Lieutenant John. I already understand your situation. If you start from here, it will take about 4 days at the fastest to reach the headquarters. However, Lieutenant General Noel said that you are not forced to return to the headquarters immediately. It just so happens that our cruiser still needs a few days to complete the handover, don't you know?" Matt is not domineering just because of his high military rank. He has a very sharp eye. He only reached the rank of major when he was in his 30s, but this Second Lieutenant John was already a second lieutenant in the headquarters at a young age, and he was affiliated with the staff department. Although the rank is lower than him now, in a few years, he will be a second lieutenant. He is a big shot that he all looks up to. In this case, Matt certainly would not show off and point fingers at a promising Navy supernova. "No problem, Major Matt. You're too polite. It's us who are causing you trouble. Of course, your mission is the first priority. We will complete the mission with you and then return to our base." In order to maintain the tranquility of the great shipping route, both the Navy headquarters and the Navy branch will send cruise ships to patrol the sea. It is not only to protect the residents of various islands and seas and eradicate pirates, but also to improve the reputation of the Navy. After all, the Grand Line is so big. If your Navy stays at the base all the time, no one will remember you. Only by frequently appearing in the public's sight, and appearing in a righteous manner, fighting pirates, etc., can we be more convincing to the people and expand the momentum and prestige of the Navy. "Thank you very much, Lieutenant John, please come on board." There were more than 50 people in John's group. The cruiser was not the previous large warship. It was slightly smaller. After they boarded, it seemed slightly crowded, but it did not affect the navigation and no one cared about anything. In a few days, John has already gained the respect of the 50 men under his command. This time, they did not contribute much, but John led them to achieve great achievements. For these first-class and second-class soldiers, maybe after returning, can be upgraded. Under such circumstances, they were naturally grateful to John. Many of them even secretly approached John, hoping to follow him and become soldiers or something like that. Regarding this, John smiled bitterly. If he wanted to have a private army, he had to reach the level of a general. He was just a second lieutenant now, and these people really looked up to him. But John naturally won't reveal anything. Although forming cliques is not a taboo in the Navy, he is just a second lieutenant now, so it's better to keep a low profile. Following Major Matt and their cruiser, John and the others sailed leisurely on the sea. John also discovered that Major Matt and his crew were directional in their navigation. They sailed by recording pointers, and they explored the islands one by one in an orderly manner. Once there were no problems, they would leave, which was quite efficient. A few days later, when they came to another island, they received bad news from the island residents. Not long ago, a pirate group appeared on this island, burning, killing and looting on the island. It has been several days and they still have not left. After seeing the Navy appear, the residents of the island asked the Navy to destroy the pirate group and restore peace to their island. The Navy, which is responsible for its responsibilities, will certainly not stand idly by when encountering such a thing. Major Matt immediately made a decision to take people to the island to find the pirate group and wipe them out. John, who had been sailing for a few days, heard about such a thing and immediately asked Major Matt to take them along. "Okay, then I'll trouble you, Lieutenant John." Of course, Matt would not refuse. After getting along with him for a few days, he already knew the extraordinary qualities of Lieutenant John. General Zepha's first-term top student, devil fruit ability user, and new member of the staff. Although his rank is still relatively low, his strength may have surpassed him. With the help of such a naval supernova, Matt readily accepted it. After all, he still didn't know the specific situation of the pirate group on the island. With the help of John and the others, he would be more confident. A group of naval forces, totaling more than 100 people, quickly landed on the island and headed in the direction mentioned by the island residents. As John and the others accelerated their advance, one of the villages on the island was being massacred by pirates. "You untouchables, how dare you resist me, the people who killed me, none of you will survive today." A pirate group of hundreds of people surrounded this small village, arrested all the villagers, and began a bloody massacre. Originally, this pirate group came to the village to plunder, but who would have thought that someone would dare to resist and kill one of their pirates? This immediately made the pirate captain furious and decided to massacre the village. Kill them all, leave no one behind. The cold blade was raised and lowered, and in just an instant, this small village with only a few hundred people was slaughtered. Ha ha ha, the pirate captain laughed proudly. The bloody scene made him very happy and proud. This pirate captain is called Coleman. He is an extremely cruel pirate who comes from the North Sea. Their pirate group is also the first half of the great route that entered from the North Sea half a year ago. The pirates led by Coleman were all a group of vicious scum, murderous criminals. They were already notorious when they were in the North Sea, and they remained unchanged after arriving on the Grand Line. Coleman has continuously committed evil deeds, and Coleman's bounty has increased from more than 40 million berry during the Beihai period to 89 million berry today. It is only about 10 million short of being able to break through 1 billion of Baileys. Because they are all scum and scum, what this pirate group has done is not to say that they are leaving no one behind, but they have caused great damage. Anyone who dares to resist will be killed. Anyone who doesn't like it will be killed. There is no money. Also kill. Although many pirate groups are vicious, most of them are seeking wealth. The wanton killing and lawless pirate group like Coleman's can definitely be regarded as the evil ghost among pirates. "Boss, we have killed them all, old people and children, not a single one was left alive." Coleman laughed even more heartily when he heard his men's reward. "Burn this place that makes me unhappy, burn it all." "Yes, boss." The pirates started lighting fires, and soon, the originally peaceful village turned into a sea of flames. "No, there's smoke rising ahead. It must be the pirates burning the village." John and others who were moving forward saw a large amount of smoke rising in front of them. This was a large amount of smoke that was produced after the flames burned. Major Matt, who was more experienced, immediately realized what had happened and was shocked. "Quick, we have to rush over immediately. We can't let those pirates do evil again, burning, killing and looting." The group of people accelerated instantly and rushed there as fast as possible. The pirates who had done all the bad things were about to leave when they suddenly saw many sailors appearing and immediately became alert. "Boss, there is a navy." Coleman's face was gloomy. "Why did the navy show up here?" "They have been on this island for a while and have never encountered the navy, but they did not expect to encounter it this time." "What the heck, if the Navy dares to come and die, I will help them. You guys, kill all the Navy for me. When a Navy and a pirate meet, the most realistic situation is to fight or flee. Since the pirate doesn't want to escape, he can only fight, and it's the kind of fight that doesn't require any nonsense and just starts fighting. Like the battle on the top, it is really rare that the fight starts after talking for a long time. It is the top duel. And now, after John and the others met the pirates, there was no need to say anything. As long as they saw the fire in the sky and the corpses on the ground, they already had enough reasons. Kill. As the highest-ranking officer in the military, Matt was furious and roaring angrily. Many Marines who had been prepared quickly took out their spears and fired at the rushing pirates. The battle was about to break out. Bang bang bang. Both sides fired almost simultaneously, shooting wildly. John did not rush to the front, but looked ahead. Although the distance was not close, he could still clearly see the flames filling the sky, as well as the mountains of corpses lying on the ground. Without thinking, he knew that these corpses must be the villagers of this village. They were just ordinary people, but now they had turned into corpses. This was more terrifying than any scene he had ever seen before. And for some reason, his amazing perception ability seemed to allow him to hear endless screams and screams. It was hard to imagine how much torture these villagers suffered before they died, and how desperate they died. These fools who have no descendants should all die. Unprecedented anger filled John's chest. It was the first time he saw such a miserable scene. No matter how calm he was, he instantly lost his mind and was left with endless anger. John. Seeing John's eyes turn red, Pemberton was shocked. He had known John for more than a year, and this was the first time he saw John so angry, even when the pirates killed a ship at sea. I have never seen John so angry before. I'm fine. Pemberton's shout woke John up, and he took a deep breath. Most of his perception had just disappeared due to anger. Pemberton, do you think all of these people should die? Pemberton replied. Yes, they all deserve to die. Very well, then I'll send them to death. John, what do you want to do? Pemberton felt that something was wrong with John's state. John did not answer, but walked to Major Matt's side and said, Major Matt, I am going to use the power of the devil fruit to make your people stop shooting later. Ah, Matt looked at John in shock, wondering what John meant. There were so many pirates, so John was planning to deal with them alone. Don't be surprised, just watch it. John didn't explain anything, walked to the front, squatted on the ground, pressed his hands on the ground, his eyes were extremely cold. Since I mastered the ability, I have never exploded with all my strength. Today, let me see where my limit is. After saying that, he used all his abilities to communicate with the plants still alive underground, and at the same time used his abilities to create plants. Saying that he is using mutton as a reference template to develop his devil fruit abilities is not just a joke by John, but he has already started planning and training. There is no need for John to develop those simple wood escape ninjutsu, because he can directly control plant attacks, which is more convenient and sensitive than the wood escape seal. But Mu Dun's ultimate move modes can be used, and the move he is using now imitates Mu Dun. But unlike Senju Hashirama, who directly claps his hands and uses chakra to create wood escape, John has no chakra, so he can only use his direct physical strength to activate the fruit's ability to create plants. This also led to the fact that the time to create the ultimate move was not as fast as Mu Dun. Unless he had prepared in advance, it might be very fast, but now, he obviously did not prepare in advance to use this move. It takes some time to prepare. Because of his anger, John did not worry about the consumption of his physical strength and used his ability to create plants to the maximum extent. After about 10 seconds, John was finally ready. He shouted, "The birth of the tree world." As John shouted loudly, the stable ground suddenly shook, and then a shocking scene happened. Suddenly, a large number of trees rushed out of the ground. The trees seemed to be uprooted. After rushing out of the ground, they grew wildly at an alarming speed, covering hundreds of meters around them. All the pirates were within the growth range of the trees. In just a few seconds, the empty ground turned into a forest, but what frightened the pirates was still behind. The trees that were uprooted from the ground not only grew rapidly, but also frantically attacked the pirates within range while growing. A large number of trees crushed the pirates, and the sharp wooden thorns, like sharp blades, pierced the pirates' bodies and lifted their bodies high. In just 10 seconds, most of the pirates were attacked and killed by the trees. The trees were dyed red with blood. Everyone could see the countless corpses being carried in the air until the trees stopped growing. Everyone present, whether they were the Navy or the pirates, were frightened by this sudden scene. The Navy stopped shooting and looked at John with disbelief, their faces full of horror. As for the pirates, they were even more frightened. A forest was created in an instant, and it was also a forest of terror, a forest that could kill people. More than 80% of the pirate group of more than 100 people were killed by this move. The trees stopped growing. The tallest trees were over 10 meters tall and were still very strong. This is the first time John has used his full power. Coupled with the reason for his anger, the full power of this move has been unleashed. It is already the strongest group attack that has been unleashed so far. Although it is not as fast and large scale as Senju Hashirama's Tree World Descendants, John's Tree World Descendants is more aggressive after it is formed. Because he can control the forest he created, countless trees attack at the same time, and the power is self-evident. Just like just now, although many pirates avoided the trees that were uprooted from the ground, they were killed by the trees that could be attacked. That is to say, John has amazing power of knowledge, can sense their location, and has strong enough mental energy to attack multiple people at the same time. If he didn't have such strong domineering power, the power of this move would be reduced by half. Combining the fruit ability with the hockey of knowledge and color has always been the development direction set by John. From the current point of view, his choice is not wrong. The larger the battle, the greater the effect of hockey of knowledge and color. The lethality was strong enough, but the consumption was also huge. With this move, John's face turned pale, and drops of sweat broke out on his forehead. Whether it is the large-scale production of plants or the excessive use of knowledge and color domineering, it is a huge drain on him. My body seemed to have been hollowed out, and my head ached even more. But John didn't care about these negative reactions. Instead, he felt extremely happy. Being able to kill these pirates was a good thing for him, which made him feel comfortable and have clear thoughts. Ensign John, you. Major Matt was shocked and speechless. This really subverted his imagination. He had never seen such a special attack method. These people deserve to die, don't they? John stood up slowly, and suddenly stumbled. Fortunately, Pemberton next to him caught him in time. John, how are you? Although Pemberton was also shocked, he was much better than others. He had seen John's ability more than once, but this was the first time he had seen the birth of the tree world like today. It's okay, the consumption is a bit heavy, I need to recover. After saying that, he did not break away from Pemberton's support, closed his eyes, endured the headache, and spread his domineering energy, covering a large area in an instant. Because of John's conscious exercise, he can now quickly communicate with plants and absorb their energy. In a place where others could not see, many plants within a 1-kilometer radius were slowly withering, turning into streams of pure energy, which quickly poured into John's body. John did not choose those large plants and trees because they took a long time to grow, and John did not want to directly deprive them of their vitality. Instead, we chose some flowers and plants that grow in season. Although their energy is not as high as that of large trees, when there are more of them, the energy will naturally increase. As the life energy entered his body, John's physical strength recovered at an extremely fast speed. The Navy was shocked and excited, but the pirates were filled with misery and horror. The gun battle between the two sides had just gone well, and Coleman was about to order his men to rush over, but who would have thought that such a drastic change would suddenly occur? A large forest appeared in an instant, and the trees seemed to be alive and kept attacking them. Coleman saw with his own eyes that his men were killed one by one. If he hadn't relied on his strong strength to chop down the attacking trees, he might have ended up with the same fate as his men. Finally, the attack by the trees stopped, but most of his men had died in the forest. Coleman was both frightened and angry. He had never encountered such a situation before, and he was about to lose his mind. Being in the forest, he looked at the trees around him with horror in his eyes. He turned around and ran out of the forest without thinking. After Coleman ran out of the forest, he discovered that among all his men, only about 20 people were left, and the rest had been buried among the trees in the forest. A series of angry curses burst out from Coleman's mouth. He was frightened that there were such ruthless people in the Navy. This was completely different from the navy he encountered when he was in the North Sea. What to do? He lost most of his men without even seeing who his opponent was. Even this cruel and bloody pirate captain was trembling with fear at this moment and had the urge to turn around and run away. While Coleman, the pirate captain, was still hesitant, some of the pirates under his command had already had second thoughts. In a corner of the forest, 4 people gathered together. They were all pirates under Coleman. The 4 pirates were tall and short, strong and thin, and one of them, a man with a snot in his nose, wearing clothes that looked like snot, wearing a hat and sunglasses, was talking. Diamante, Virgo, Pica, you have all seen that Coleman is in big trouble this time and has provoked powerful people in the Navy. I'm afraid he is about to die. The boy, who also wore glasses and had balls stuck to his face, who looked about 10 years old, said calmly, I have followed Coleman for so long, and I have already recognized his level. He is not the person we are looking for. Virgo is right, Coleman is a waste, we should not have joined him in the first place. Diamante snorted very unhappily. He had long been unhappy with Coleman. The guy felt that they were young and did not regard them as the main force at all. How could the 4 arrogant people endure this? These 4 pirates gathered together will be the 4 top leaders of the Don Quixote family in the future. Toripal, Virgo, Diamante, Pica. Because these 4 people have not met Doflamingo yet, they are still looking for people suitable for their training to join the Coleman Pirates, and they also want to see if Coleman has the qualifications. After following Coleman for a while, they knew that Coleman was not the person they were looking for. He did not have the qualifications to be a king, but because he was not strong enough, they did not dare to quit the pirate group easily. Although these 4 people are not very young, in fact they have been pirates for a while, and they all have the characteristics of pirates, being cruel and vicious, and doing all kinds of evil. The 4 of them were unwilling to be ordinary pirates. After getting to know each other, they have been looking for someone with the qualifications to become a king. At this moment, they knew that Coleman had encountered a strong enemy, and they did not even think about facing the enemy with Coleman. Instead, they immediately thought of leaving the others behind and escaping alone. We cannot fight head-on with the Navy. When we find an opportunity, we will retreat immediately. Good. The 4 attacked and defended the alliance, and soon reached a consensus and decided to escape as soon as they found an opportunity. After absorbing the life energy of the plant, John's physical strength quickly recovered and he soon opened his eyes. Major Matt, those pirates who are still alive have left the woods I created. Matt shouted decisively. Chase, surround them, don't let any of them escape. Now, he admired John greatly. After being reminded, he immediately surrounded the pirates. Before Coleman could think about it, the Navy had already surrounded him. The ferocious pirate immediately gave up the idea of escape, stared at the Navy with a ferocious face, and decided to fight the Navy desperately. Kill. Major General Matt did not hesitate. Facing a few pirates, he directly issued the order and started fighting. The Navy and pirates attacked with all their strength immediately, but the Navy far outnumbered the pirates, who suffered heavy losses. They had the upper hand the moment they made contact, and the pirates were unable to withstand the Navy's siege. But there are exceptions. The remaining pirates in this pirate group are not all weak. There are still a few powerful figures, such as Coleman, and several pirates who are very close to him, and they are not weak, but killed several Marines. Major Matt didn't take action at first. After seeing Coleman kill several sailors, he immediately rushed over in anger and fought with Coleman. Pemberton, you also bring people to help Major Matt and the others. John ordered Pemberton. Although he had recovered a lot of physical strength, his mental state was still a little poor and he needed to take a while, so he asked Pemberton to help Matt first. No problem, leave it to me. Pemberton rushed over with his men and found another powerful pirate and started a battle. Although Pemberton was inferior to John in terms of strength, he was able to become a member of the elite class. His talent was not bad, and his strength was also outstanding. The pirate he faced was not weak at all. The 2 of them killed you come and go, very intense. But the situation on Major Matt's side is not so good. Coleman is a pirate with a bounty of nearly 90 million. In addition to being cruel, he is also very powerful. After Matt and Coleman fought, they soon became at a disadvantage. Fortunately, the Navy has a large number of people and many people are cooperating with Matt, so although they cannot defeat Coleman, they will not lose, they are just stalemate there. You Marines have killed so many of my men, and I have to find them all over again. I want to kill you all. Coleman was originally a little afraid of the powerful person who had just created a forest, but after the fight, he found that this group of Marines seemed to be like this, so he immediately became more confident and yelled like crazy. Coleman went crazy and his combat power increased greatly. Major Matt and others were beaten to the point where they were in danger and could no longer hold on. In this world, personal combat power can sometimes play a decisive role. It is no problem to fight 1 against 100. Although Coleman is not a very strong pirate, the strongest member of the Navy he faced was only a major. A major can only be regarded as a middle-level officer in the Navy. He is not very strong and cannot defeat the bounty. It is normal for a pirate to have more than 80 million gold. Even though he couldn't beat him, Major Matt still didn't retreat even half an inch and was still trying to resist. The duty of the Navy is to eradicate pirates. How can it shrink from the pirates? If it shrinks, how can it be worthy of the military uniform and code of justice? More importantly, Matt knew that as long as he persisted a little longer, John would be able to recover 1 more point. When John recovered, he would definitely be able to destroy this pirate. John naturally also saw Matt's embarrassment. Seeing that Matt was about to lose his hold, he didn't care about his still uncomfortable head and moved instantly. Go to hell. Matt was hit hard by Coleman. His whole body was knocked away and blood spurted out of his mouth. Coleman gained the upper hand and bullied him. This time he raised the big knife in his hand and slashed him hard. Go down. Not good. Matt was shocked. Boom. Coleman suddenly paused because several vines appeared and entangled his hand holding the knife, making it impossible for him to chop. Who is it? Coleman was furious. He turned around and saw a young Navy man looking at him coldly on the other side of the cane. Ensign John. Matt was overjoyed when he saw John. Leave the rest to me, Major Matt. John's tone was cold. Although he was still a little uncomfortable, it would not have much impact. He looked at Coleman with a strong murderous intent in his eyes. Pulling the cane hard, Coleman's body moved several steps. Then Coleman stepped hard on the ground with his feet, flicked his wrist, and cut off the cane with the blade. You little brat who doesn't even have hair, since you're looking for death, I'll kill you. After roaring, he swung the 2-meter-long sword in his hand and rushed towards John to kill him. Shave. Before Coleman could rush to John, John had already used shave first and was behind Coleman in an instant. Lanjow. The vacuum slash formed by Land's kick hit Coleman hard. Coleman turned around in time and blocked it with his blade, but the strong force still made him keep retreating. John continued to use the Landco to attack. Because he had the upper hand, Coleman could only passively resist. John forced him to retreat continuously. He was hit by the land kick several times, but it seemed that he did not suffer much. Serious injuries. Finger gun. John continued to use the extended skills of the finger gun and Lanji. When he was in the naval school, he majored in the 6th form of the Navy, because he knew very well that the 6th form of the Navy was extremely powerful and allowed him to use a lot of for a long time. It can be said that among the students of their period, John was definitely the first person to study and understand the 6th form of the Navy the most. Even the training madman Sakaski was not as good as him in understanding the 6th form. Zephyr already has high attainments in the 6th form of the Navy. In addition, John has watched anime and has many ideas for development, so his application and understanding of the 6th form of the Navy is stronger. Zephydu has praised John's progress in the 6th form of the Navy more than once, saying that he is a genius in practicing the 6th form. With 6 moves and no use of abilities, John has suppressed Coleman. The big pirate with a bounty of 89 million belly around him is actually not worthy of his name. A large part of his bounty is because of his cruelty. He is easy to kill. After meeting John, his opponent, his disadvantages slowly became apparent. After all, he came from the North Sea. Although he had a certain strength, he seemed bulky and lacked attack methods. However, Coleman also has something worthy of recognition, that is, his basic skills are quite good and his physical fitness is also excellent. Under John's crazy attack, although he was embarrassed, he had no tendency to give up and lose. Lanjow. Another attack from the Arashi kick was thrown out, and when Coleman blocked it, John suddenly pressed his hands to the ground. Bamboo thorn. PFFT. In an instant, countless sharp bamboos suddenly appeared on the ground. The heads of these bamboos were extremely sharp. They emerged from the ground, making Coleman unable to guard against it. There were more than a dozen bamboo thorns piercing his body. The soles of his feet, limbs, and every part of his body were pierced by sharp bamboo thorns, causing his body to freeze instantly. 6 types of secrets. 6 King's Spear. Of course, John would not give up this best opportunity. He used the shaving moment to get in front of Coleman, put his hands together into fists, aimed at Coleman's chest, and struck out hard. John's body strength was concentrated in his fists. A shock wave-like attack and a huge punch hit Coleman's body hard, and it also erupted through Coleman's body, behind him. A shocking impact. Puff. Even though Coleman was strong, he was unable to hold on after being hit by these 2 attacks, especially the last blow from the 6 King's Spear. His eyes turned white, his head drooped, and his body was stabbed by sharp bamboo thorns. Nailed to the ground. Call. John let out a heavy breath, and the last move, the 6-style secret art and the 6 King's Spear, was the strongest single-target attack move he had mastered so far. It was not surprising that he defeated Coleman in one move. Although the previous Tree World Fall was more powerful, Tree World's Fall was a large-scale group attack. In comparison, in a one-on-one situation, the attack power is not as damaging as the 6 King's gun. Because so far, John has not mastered armament hockey, the trees he can control are still much less aggressive to a strong person. On the contrary, the impact of the 6 King's Spear, a move like the 6-style secret art, is stronger than the attack power of trees. John has discovered this problem a long time ago, so he has been experimenting with how to increase the aggressiveness of trees to a greater extent. The reference direction is still the wood escape between Senju Hashirama, because it is the most intuitive. But so far, the progress has not been too great. Making trees and controlling plant growth is no longer a problem for him. But it is much more difficult to shape the manufactured plants and change the shape of the plants than to control their growth. Now, the most he can do is make trees perform some simple shaping, such as forming wooden boards, wooden strips, spikes, etc. It would be too difficult to achieve a greater degree of shaping, such as instantly creating an animal form or a human form. At least it can't be done in a short time, and if it takes too long, it won't make much sense. During the real battle, who will give you time to prepare? There is a direction, but it has not been developed yet. This is John's current situation. This shows that his control of abilities has not reached a higher level and there is still a lot of room for development. Ensign John. Matt sees John beating Coleman and comes over. "I'll leave this guy to you. He's killed so many people, we can't let him die so easily." Matt's face was sinister. "Leave it to me. If this kind of person dies, it will be an advantage for him. I will make his life worse than death." The battle on John's side had just ended, and the other battles were not over yet. John did not stop and quickly went to help others. With the addition of John, a new force, the remaining dozen pirates were quickly defeated and captured one by the Navy. "Major, all the pirates have been captured, and there are 12 of them still alive," a soldier reported to Matt. Matt asked, "Did you figure out their identities?" "The captain is Coleman, with a bounty of 89 million Baileys. He has been quite active in recent months. He commits murders, arson, and commits all kinds of evil. As for the other pirates, just like Coleman, they are all heinous villains." Matt cursed angrily. "These pirates all deserve to die. No, we can't let them die so easily." A village was slaughtered and burned right in front of them, making many Navy soldiers extremely angry. "Are you sure you haven't missed anything? We have already explored it, but we dare not enter the forest created by Lieutenant John." The soldier glanced at John carefully and pointed to the forest created by the advent of the tree world. They had just seen with their own eyes how those trees killed the pirates, and they did not dare to get close. John said, "There are no living people inside, they are all dead, huh?" Just as he was about to say that they were all dead, John's expression suddenly changed. "There are actually 4 little mice still alive." "What? Is there anyone alive in the forest?" Major Matt was very shocked. He couldn't understand why they didn't run out since they were still alive. John shook his head and said, "No, they were not there, but they ran away from behind while we were fighting. They had already run a certain distance. It seems that this pirate group is not monolithic. There are still smart people. John, who wanted to confirm whether there were any survivors, used the hockey of insight and hearing. No survivors were found in the forest, but he discovered that there were 4 breaths a few kilometers away. It seemed that he had escaped from the forest while they were not paying attention. Major Matt, I'll leave this to you. I'll go after those 4 people. After saying that, John immediately chased in that direction. There were only 4 people on the other side, and he could deal with them alone. Quickly, run quickly. Coleman and the others will not be able to resist for long. We cannot be exposed. Torvald was urging as he ran, but in fact, although he was the oldest, he was the slowest runner. The 4 people who were running wildly didn't notice that suddenly, the branches of a tree in front of them stretched instantly and hit them. Paw, paw, ah! With a scream, Torvald was struck and fell to the ground miserably, with a bloody streak on his face. As for the other 3, Virgo was agile and could avoid the incoming branches with a single jump. Diamante suddenly reached out and touched the branch when the branch came. The tough branch instantly turned into a light and silky shape, without causing any harm to him. As for Pika, the branches hit him, making a louder sound, but he seemed to have no reaction. Looking at the big tree with flying branches, Virgo shouted, "Get away from this tree quickly." The 4 people immediately retreated, and Torrebel also rolled away and crawled away. But as soon as they retreated like this, they naturally delayed their escape and were chased by John. "Where do you 4 want to run?" John caught up and was slightly shocked when he saw the appearance of these 4 people. Except for the disgusting guy with a square face and a runny nose, the other 3 looked like young teenagers. "You became a pirate at such a young age. And why does it feel a little familiar?" John was surprised that these people joined the pirate group at such a young age, but he did not soften his heart, and for some reason, he always felt that this strange group of 4 seemed familiar to him. This Navy must be the one who created the forest just now. We can't fight him. Torrebel was somewhat clever. The branch attack just now made him recognize John's identity, and he told the other 3 people immediately. The seaside is not far away. He must be an Esper. If he can reach the sea, we will be safe. Virgo said. "No, we are all capable people and cannot go into the sea." A sharp voice sounded. This was another person among the 4, wearing a golden helmet. He obviously looked like a man, but the sound he made was extremely sharp, neither male nor female, and it made people's scalp numb. However, the other 3 people were obviously used to Pika's voice and did not appear strange. "I'm not a person with abilities. I might be able to survive if I take a gamble, but if we fight him, we have almost no chance of winning." Although these people were arrogant, they were not blindly arrogant. Virgo felt that they would not be John's opponents, so he was thinking about how to retreat. Listen to Virgo and find a way to hold him back and escape from the sea. Torvald, the eldest, immediately made a decision, not to mention that it would be difficult for them to defeat John. Even if they could win, so what? There were a large number of Navy behind them, and they had no chance of winning. Diamante, Pika, Virgo, don't hold anything back later and attack with all your strength. Run. The 4 of them immediately ran towards the seaside. Moonstep. John jumped continuously in the air, flew over the heads of the escaping foursome at high speed, and landed in front of them. Before John could speak, the 4 people had already taken action. Torbol's body secreted thick brown mucus, forming a bead-shaped chain of mucus, and quickly attacked John. John raised his brows, and a wooden board quickly appeared in front of him, blocking all the slime. A bit of cold light struck, and it turned out to be a long sword, and it became as long as silk. It struck lightly but very quickly. It looked like silk, but it was filled with cold light, which was creepy. Those who can. John was slightly surprised and used Shaver to move to the other side, but what followed was a wooden stick. The small figure jumped up and hit John's head hard. Not only that, several sharp stone pillars suddenly appeared around John, stabbing at John. Interesting. Just by seeing a few people take action, it was already confirmed that they had at least 2 ability users. Except for the disgusting-looking square-faced boy, the other 3 teenagers seemed not to be simple. Lanzhou. He kicked out a series of slashes with both feet, smashing all the stone pillars he attacked, and even kicked the young man who was attacking above him away. The cooperation is good, but still too immature. These young men are indeed very strong, and they also have abilities. They are a good combination, and they can make a name for themselves in the world. But it's a pity that they met John. John's current strength, if placed on the sea, can at least reach the supernova level with a bounty of more than 100 million, which is simply not what they can deal with now. Among the four, the future Virgo is considered very strong, but the current Virgo is only about 10 years old. How good can he be? Diamante and Pika are similar. Even if they have fruit abilities, they have just entered the growth stage and do not pose much threat to John at all. The four of them teamed up to besiege John, but it was obvious that they were still on the receiving end. However, their abilities did have some merit, and John did not capture them quickly. "Come on, I'll stop him," a sharp voice sounded. Seeing that he was no match for John, Pika suddenly screamed, melted into the rock, and turned into a stone man. His size was enlarged several times, and he hit John hard, past. Torbol's eyes flickered, and then he shouted to Virgo and Diamante, "Let's go." In this situation, if they stayed, the four of them might not be able to leave. Now that Pika had this realization, they no longer hesitated and immediately turned around and ran away. Want to run. When John saw the other three trying to escape, his eyes suddenly turned cold and he was about to chase after him, but the stone man transformed by Pika rushed towards him desperately and attacked him. John frowned. He was still more of flesh and blood now, and the rocks were also very aggressive. Pika's frantic attack forced him to dodge. As a result, his pursuit route was blocked by the stone man. "Since you are looking for death, then I will help you." Although he was surprised by the young man's approach to buying time for his companions, John did not hesitate because of this. Facing this solid stone man, he directly used the strongest attack. 6 types of secrets 6 King's Spear. This move even defeated Coleman just now. Although Pika turned into a stone man with the fruit's ability, it did not mean that he could block this blow. After the blow, John didn't care about the stone man who was already stunned, but quickly chased the 3 escaping people. The 3 of Torbal, taking advantage of Pika's delay, had already run to the seaside. What made them despair was that although they were facing the seaside, they were also facing cliffs. "Why are you hesitating? This is our only way to survive." Seeing that Torapal and Diamante were still hesitating, Virgo immediately shouted, then grabbed their hands and jumped off the cliff. Torbal and Diamante both screamed in fear. The 3 of them fell from a cliff dozens of meters high and soon fell into the sea. John chased them to the edge of the cliff with a gloomy expression. He was very surprised by the decision-making of these 3 people. Even if they had the ability, they all jumped into the sea without hesitation. Shouldn't one's life be cut off? At such a high distance, even with his abilities, it is difficult to attack. His control over seabed plants is currently not as good as that of plants on land, and there are relatively fewer plants in the sea than on land. The reason why he felt it was a pity was because John had already recognized the origins of these 4 people. He couldn't be sure before the fight, but after the fight, he was already sure. These 4 people should be the 4 highest cadres of the future Don Quixote family: Torrebel, Virgo, Diamante and Pika. Their abilities and appearance can match them. The Don Quixote pirates are definitely the real villains. Whether it is what they did in the North Sea or what they did in the New World, they are all heinous crimes. Being able to cultivate Doflamingo into that kind of evil existence is enough to show how vicious these 4 people are. After recognizing these 4 people, John immediately wanted to deal with them, because the damage caused by these 4 people in the future would definitely be greater than Coleman's pirate group just now. It's a pity that the other party ran away with 3 people. In the selfish world of pirates, there are still people who are willing to sacrifice themselves to save others. This really surprised John. Since he couldn't catch up, John didn't bother anymore. He would talk about it later when he had the chance. Dragging the half-dead Pika, John walked back along the route he had just come from. John played a decisive role in this incident, which made Major Matt very grateful. After the inspection, he immediately drove the warship to the Navy headquarters, preparing to send John and the others back. As for the captured pirates such as Coleman, they plan to hand them over to the Navy headquarters after they arrive and imprison them in Impel Down City. The journey back to the headquarters base was very smooth. No problems were encountered. It took a few days to return to the Navy headquarters base. After saying goodbye to Matt and the others, John asked the soldiers under his command to go back. After saying a few words to Pemberton, he went straight back to the staff headquarters to report the incident to he. I have read the telegram that Noel sent back to the headquarters. You did a good job in this matter. This was the first time that he formally praised John since he joined the staff, but it actually made him a little uncomfortable. I just did what I was supposed to do. He looked at him and asked, "What do you think about this incident?" "Ah, what do you think?" John didn't quite understand what he meant. He said solemnly, "There are only you and me here. Don't worry too much. Just tell us what you really think." John breathed a sigh of relief. He had been working under he for more than half a year, and he still knew what kind of person he was. Like Zepha, he was very supportive of him and was an absolutely trustworthy elder and commander. "If I have to give my opinion, I think those archaeologists should not be punished until death. But you have to know that they have touched the bottom line of the government and are pursuing secrets that the government must not disclose. If this secret is leaked, it is likely to cause turmoil in the world. In this case, can they still be punished to death?" he asked, his expression becoming much more serious. John felt less scrupulous and began to speak his mind. "In fact, in my opinion, for ordinary people, history is not important. More people think about the future. I think it is impossible to subvert the world by relying on some history." He really couldn't understand what the world government had done 800 years ago that was so unknown that it was so afraid of being known. You must know that they have ruled the world for 800 years. How many people in the world really care about the history of 800 years ago? Those who really care about the past are either historians like those stupid young people, or people who are dissatisfied with the rule of the world government. Through the anime, John learned some about the past, but the specific history had not been revealed before he traveled through time. He said, "Sometimes, don't jump to conclusions about things you don't understand. Since you think those scholars are not worthy of death, why do you still hand them over to CP? You know very well that after handing over to CP, there is only one end. It is a soldier's duty to obey orders." John replied. He chuckled, but did not refute, but said seriously, "You were right, obeying orders is a soldier's duty, and more importantly, he must strengthen his beliefs and justice. For the sake of justice, sometimes there will be sacrifices. At this moment, you have to make a decision. Just like this time, if you were soft-hearted and let those archaeologists go, that would be a real mistake. Maybe the task you accepted was unreasonable, but for the sake of more people, catching them is the best option. Good choice. This can not only avoid world turmoil, but also serve as a warning to other archaeologists, allowing other archaeologists to understand that there are some bottom lines that cannot be touched. Sacrificing a few people can save more people. You will encounter more choices like this in the future. We can teach you many things, but there are some things that we cannot teach and can only be experienced by yourself." Quote. John listened very carefully. Although he knew a lot and had many ideas, in this world, his life experience was obviously richer than his, and he was more able to see through the essence of this world. He can understand all the truths he said. This is both enlightening and teaching him. However, he felt that he was wrong. The world government's attempt to scare the monkeys would not be effective. They still underestimated the belief of O'Hara's scholars. In the near future, those people will set sail again, and they will have a big impact. "Yes, I understand." He nodded with satisfaction. She thought John was good, not only because of his outstanding talent, but more importantly, because John was smart and could understand many things at once. In the staff department, after training with female soldiers for so long, there were no conflicts. On the contrary, many female soldiers liked John very much. This shows that John has a good personality, is relatively calm, and can handle relationships well. "I also heard that you followed the branch's warship and eradicated a pirate group on the way. You did a good job. Rather than arresting those scholars, dealing with pirates is the real responsibility of our Navy. This is your first mission, and you did a good job. I will ask for credit for you, and you should be able to be promoted to one rank by then." Although John didn't do much this time, he completed part of the tasks assigned by the world government. This credit is not small for John, who is only a second lieutenant. He also personally captured a pirate with a bounty of more than 80 million belly. With his guarantee, it was not a big problem to be promoted to a military rank. Besides, if you have anything else you want, you can tell me. John thought for a moment and said, I really want to ask you for help with something. You know my ability, so I want to get some special plant seeds, tree seeds, flower seeds, the more special the better. I want research and development capabilities. Plant seeds. Okay, no problem, this is not a rare thing. I will let someone pay attention to it. He knew that John was a plant-type devil fruit. She had also checked the devil fruit encyclopedia before, and there were also some plant-type devil fruits. But he is not sure which one John ate, because what John said is different from the fruit in the devil fruit illustrated book. She knew that John wanted plant seeds just to improve his own strength, so she would not object. John, you are strong enough to go to sea. I have not let you go out before. I want you to calm down. After this incident, I can see that you still have a sense of proportion in what you do. Next, I often send you some tasks, is there any problem? No, John was overjoyed. Of course there was no problem. This was what he longed for. He had long been impatient by staying at the naval base. He had always wanted to go to conquer the world like Sakaski and Porisalino. Pirates. Okay, you go back first. If there is a mission, I will ask Guillaume to inform you. Thank you, Lieutenant General. I will take my leave now. John left Crane's office happily. Since this little guy wants to go to sea, let's do what he wishes. The Navy headquarters manages so many sea areas. As one of the important departments, the staff department has no mission. It's just that he didn't prepare for John to participate in the past, just to test John's temper. Now that I feel that John is capable enough, I decided to start letting John participate in some tasks. Chapter 51. John didn't wait long. 3 days later, he waited for the commendation from the headquarters. His military rank was successfully promoted by 1 level and he became a lieutenant of the Navy headquarters. Navy lieutenants under the age of 19 are rare, if not unique. John wasn't too excited about his promotion in military rank. He hadn't even reached the school level yet, so he really couldn't get excited. What John is looking forward to is when he can continue to go to sea. He has been waiting for the Crane's call. Did it fail again? It seems that this direction is not feasible. Looking at a flower that had lost its vitality in front of him, John felt quite regretful. This has been his countless experiments, trying to restore the vitality of a plant that has lost its vitality, but unfortunately, there is no reaction at all. In the past, he thought that when his abilities were developed to a certain extent, he might be able to revive dead trees and change the life and death of plants. But now it seems that this possibility is almost zero. Once the plant loses its vitality, not only can he not be able to save it, but he can also not control it and let it attack. In short, he cannot control dead plants and cannot use his abilities, he can only control living plants. Although it is a bit regretful, John is not too disappointed. His fruit ability is already very powerful. No devil fruit can be unsolvable. There are always some flaws. The inability to control dead plants may be the flaw in his fruit ability. It can't be said to be a flaw, it can only be said that it is not perfect. John's expectations for his fruit ability are too high, so he feels regretful after such a flaw appears. John had imagined before that if he could control wood at will, how many people would be his opponents when fighting at sea. Most ships are made of wood. If he can control the wood, he can disintegrate the ship in an instant. Now it seems that this idea cannot be realized, because the wood of the ship is lifeless, and he cannot control the lifeless wood. He can control the wood he created at will, but he cannot control the formed, lifeless wood. Another point is that he has read many books about plants before and knows a lot of plants in this world. He wanted to use his ability to create the plants in the books, but he failed. He could not create plants that he had not personally come into contact with. He could only create plants that he had come into contact with. This is why John asked Crane to help him collect plant seeds before. He can use the seeds to create new types of plants. After contacting them, he can create them without seeds. Therefore, for John, the more seeds, the stronger his abilities can be. Of course, the amount of physical energy required to make different plants is also different. The simpler and more common plants are, the easier they are to make and the less physical energy is consumed. The more powerful the plant, the more special and rare the plant, the more energy it takes to create it. Just like a tree that can grow to hundreds of meters, if John were to control it now, it would consume a lot of his physical strength. If he were to induce the growth of this plant seed, John would probably have to expend all his energy to make it grow to its maximum size. He now urgently wants various plant seeds to expand his plant library so that he can create more plant types and have more attack methods. In this world, there are all kinds of plants. John remembered that there was an island described in the plot, which was the plant island where the protagonist Usopp was photographed by Tyrant Bear. There were many plants on it, and those plants were very strong. But he just remembered the plot. When he watched that episode of anime, he wasn't very serious about it, so now he can't remember the name of the island. In addition, the island is very dangerous, so he decided to watch it again in the future when he has enough strength to find. A few more days passed. John, on this day, Gion, whom he had not seen for a long time, visited John's small yard again. Gion, why are you here? John and he have been studying fruit abilities these days, so they have not gone to train with the female soldiers these days. Naturally, they are rarely seen, and Gion, the busiest among them, is not even seen once. Bin. The Lieutenant General is looking for you. Gion first answered John's question, and then said in surprise, "Hey, John, you seem to have grown taller again." John was stunned. Really, I don't care about this, but is it weird? I'm not 19 yet, and it will definitely grow in the future. He had always been worried about his height in the past. Even his father was over 2 meters tall. But now that he is 17, he is only a little over 1.8 meters tall. He thought his height was just like that. Fortunately, it was not the case. He has been growing since he came to the Navy headquarters base. He has grown from a little over 1.8 meters a year and a half ago to nearly 2.1 meters now, and he is expected to grow even more in the future. If this trend continues, the hope of growing another few tens of centimeters will be great. If that's the case, he can really breathe a sigh of relief. The goal he has set for himself is to be a naval admiral. It will be more embarrassing if he is strong enough by then but is much shorter than other admirals. Now it seems that this problem should be solved, and men's height growth can continue until about the age of 20. By the way, Gion, the Lieutenant General is looking for me. Is there a mission for me? John asked tentatively. Gion shook his head and said, I don't know about this. You can ask the Lieutenant General yourself. Come on, go there now. John didn't dare to delay and immediately followed Gion to Crane's office. Dong dong, come in. Hearing the noise inside, John pushed open the door and entered. Only after entering did he realize that there was another person besides Crane. Boy John, are you surprised to see me again? Aren't you surprised? Ha 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 ha. Looking at Garp, who was laughing and looking proud, and John's head full of black lines, I was so surprised. What a surprise. Lieutenant General Garp. Hey, you used to call me Uncle Garp, why do you call me Lieutenant General now? Garp asked, confused. John was really too lazy to answer. Don't you have any comparison in your mind about your own virtues? Is it a bit elder-like? Lieutenant General, are you looking for me? He nodded and said, well, wait a moment. After saying that, she looked at Garp and said, Garp, didn't you say that you were in need of someone? Short of people. When did I say that? I didn't say that. Garp looked confused. He didn't know what he meant by saying that. He really didn't say that. He suddenly widened his eyes and shouted, I said you said it, you said it. Captain was so frightened that he shrank his neck. Even though he was very powerful in front of outsiders, he didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of he. Yes, 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 I said it, just now. He was then satisfied, and then said to John, you heard it too, Garp is short of people now. The task I give you is very simple. Garp will go to sea recently, you follow his team to conquer the pirates. Yes, Lieutenant General. John was extremely happy. He had been waiting for this opportunity. Being able to follow Garp was the best thing for him. As one of the strongest combat forces in the Navy headquarters, Garp must go out to sea to fight against big pirates. His current strength may still be a little behind those big pirates, but as long as he can meet those big pirates, he will definitely be there, his opponent. John boy, follow me. Okay then. When he heard that he asked John to follow him, Garp naturally would not refuse, but instead agreed with a smile. Recently, there was a guy who practiced Iron 2 Kung Fu. I heard that he had been making a lot of trouble recently and had a great impact. Kong asked me to teach him a lesson, and I happened to take John with me to show him what he was doing. Garp, I handed John over to you. If anything happens, I can't spare you. Crane warned Garp. Garp patted his chest and said confidently, as long as I'm here, this kid will definitely be fine. Xiaohei, don't worry. John, although Garp is sometimes out of tune, he is a very reliable person. You can learn more from him. Captain exclaimed depressedly. Xiaohei, when did I lose my tune? Not only am I reliable, but I am also very tuneful. If John follows me, you can rest assured, as long as he can learn a little bit from me. With this ability, you can punch the golden lion and kick the white beard. In the current new world, the golden lion is the strongest, followed closely by Whitebeard and Roger, and then it is Charlotte Lingling's turn. As for Kaido, he has not yet started to make a fortune, he is just a relatively powerful pirate. Neither he nor John paid attention to the sound of Garp's leather blowing. Although John didn't know as much about Garp as he did, he also knew what kind of person Garp was. Okay, John, you can go with Garp later, he will leave soon. He told John that Garp came to her today just to say goodbye to her. Just before, she was thinking about what task to give John. Garp came just in time. Let John follow Garp. Not only would he be safe, you can also learn a lot. Yes, Lieutenant General, John replied loudly. He looked at Garp and asked, aren't you leaving yet? Let's go, where are we going? Oh, yes, I'm about to leave, so I'll leave first, Xiaohei. Garp scratched his head. He originally wanted to chat with He for a while, but he was told to leave. He could only leave with a depressed look on his face. Boy John, please be more agile with your movements. I'll wait for you over there. Of course, John would not delay. After leaving the office, he immediately returned to his yard. After bringing the necessary things, he headed to the port without stopping. Cow, I've known for a long time that he is unreliable, why do you still believe in his words? John, who was in high spirits, arrived at the port, but found that there was no Garp at all, let alone Garp. Not even Garp's troops were seen. Obviously, they were not ready yet. John was so angry that when he watched anime before, he thought Garp's giggling and unreliable look was quite funny. But now that it falls on me, I really can't laugh at all. There is no choice but to wait. This wait was truly extraordinary. It took 2 full hours for Garp's men to arrive at the port and begin to integrate manpower and inspect the warships. As for Garp himself, he still had not arrived yet. John, why are you here? Suddenly a surprised voice sounded. John turned around and saw that it was Dorag. His mood immediately improved a lot. He finally met an acquaintance again, and he was his roommate who had been living together for a year. I was temporarily transferred to Lieutenant General Garp. Lieutenant General Garp asked me to wait for him here. As a result, I have been waiting for more than 2 hours, and I haven't even seen him yet. Dorag smiled and said, do you believe what my old man said? I guess he doesn't know where to look for food now. Delog naturally knows his father very well. If you ask him who is the most unreliable in the world, he will definitely answer without hesitation that it must be his father. His father, in addition to being his role model in terms of strength, can only lead him to bad things. Whether he can succeed depends not only on his own efforts, but also on the education from his father. John smiled bitterly. Of course Dorag could accuse Garp unscrupulously, but he did not have the qualifications. Hey, we haven't seen each other for more than half a year, and you've already become a major. John was shocked when he saw Dolig's military rank. As far as he knew, even Sakazuki and Porisolino in the New World had only been promoted to major so far. When Dolig graduated, his military rank was 1 level lower than both of them. As a result, he was now coming from behind. This made him wonder if Dolig had gone through the back door. After all, his father was in the Navy. The top few figures. Looking at your eyes, I can tell what you are thinking. As for our old man, do you think he will protect me? Seeing the look in John's eyes, Dorag knew what John was thinking. He smiled bitterly and said truthfully. When John thought about it, he was right. Although Garp was unreliable, he probably wouldn't blatantly benefit his son. It was more likely that he exploited Dorag. Dolig, Where are you going this time? Dorag replied. From what my father said, it seems to be a crusade against a big pirate from the Kingdom of Flowers. His name is Green Pepper of the Cone. He is a guy who practices Iron Head Kung Fu. He is very powerful. He has a bounty of more than 500 million Baileys. With I've beaten the Golden Lion of the New World and others. Green Pepper of the Cone. When John heard this name, he immediately thought of a person. In the anime Dressrosa incident, the old man who fought Straw Hat Luffy and the pillar of the 8 Treasure Navy was a powerful figure with overlord-like domineering. The 8 Treasure Navy of the Flower Country is also a very powerful pirate force, and it is also a pirate force supported by the country. Although Qingjiao in the anime was defeated by Garp, there is no doubt that this person was also a pirate force before he was defeated. A famous pirate on the sea. John, how is your fruit power developing? Since Garp hadn't arrived yet, everyone naturally couldn't leave. John was familiar with Dorag, so he could only chat with Dorag. Is it the fruit ability? It's okay. I've gradually mastered it and developed some moves, but I haven't developed more aggressive moves yet. John's ability moves, so far, are the strongest one, which is the Tree World Descent developed based on the Wood Escape. However, this move is okay against ordinary people, but it is almost useless against strong people. Don't worry, it's only been more than a year since you ate the fruit, and there will be more time in the future. Delog comforted John, and then suddenly remembered something and took out a box from his body. John, these are some plant seeds. I know you need these. I collected them when I found them before. I originally wanted to give them to you, but I didn't come back enough and didn't meet you. I just gave them to you this time. Plant seeds. John was very surprised. It was not a secret that he needed plant seeds, but he didn't expect Dorag to collect them for him. Yes, but I don't know much about these. There seem to be some special plants in the seeds, but because it has been a long time, I don't know if they are still useful. John took Dorag's box and thanked him sincerely. Thanks, Dorag. Why are you being polite to me? Dorag smiled slightly. Opening the box, John was surprised to find that there were a lot of seeds inside, and not just one kind, but various different types. After careful counting, there were more than 50 types of seeds. Dorag, where did you get the seeds? I have never seen many of them. John himself can use his ability to create seeds, but there are not many types he can create. There are more than 50 types of seeds here, and he can only create a dozen types. The rest are seeds he has never seen before. Dorag said, some of them were found by me, and others were bought by me, but I don't know what many of the seeds are. I only know these kinds. This one is a thorn plant, this one seems to be a willow tree, and this one is a willow tree. There is this, a poisonous flower. I don't know what you need, so I brought it all over. You have a try. If it's useful, I'll have someone look for it for you. Thank you very much. How much did these cost in total? I'll give it to you. John asked. Dorag smiled and said, have you forgotten that I still owe you money? Don't worry, these are just some seeds. How much are they worth? I will help you find the seeds, so you don't have to pay back the money I owe you. 1 code equals 1 code. I know you will definitely look for it again in the future. If you keep refusing to pay, you will suffer great losses. John shook his head. It is true that ordinary seeds are worthless, but some seeds are hard to find and are worth a little money. The larger the quantity, the higher the price. Okay, that's it. But Delog waved his hand and was not willing to accept the money at all. Seeing that Dorag always insisted, John could only compromise. He was actually not short of money. When he first came to the Navy headquarters more than a year ago, his father gave him a large amount of money. He basically didn't use it in the base, except that the guy Porisolino borrowed a lot of it. He had done a mission before and caught pirates. Crane gave him a lot of rewards, and he saved them all. John discovered that the management of the Navy headquarters is actually quite humane. Catching pirates is not just a duty of the Navy. After catching pirates, they can also get part of the bounty, but it is not the same as the bounty of pirates. Compared to, it's much less. But even so, as long as more pirates are caught, there will be no shortage of money. This is also the main factor why many Navy soldiers are keen on catching pirates. Everyone comes to join the Navy purely for justice. There are only a few of them. The vast majority of people come here for the treatment of the Navy. If the Navy had no money, how could it recruit so many people? Do you really think that everyone can support their families in the name of justice? A few more hours passed, until the sky had turned dark, and Garp arrived belatedly. The soldiers who had been waiting for Garp's late arrival were not surprised, they were all used to it. Wow, ha ha ha, are you all waiting for me? I'm not late, am I? No one paid any attention to Garp, except John, who couldn't help but rolled his eyes. After Garp saw John, he suddenly said, "Boy John, why are you here so early?" John was really speechless, he didn't even want to speak, but Garp still insisted on teasing him. "I've packed it up and I'm here. Lieutenant General Garp, you were the most punctual." Garp laughed loudly. "Boy John, you don't understand this. Night is the most suitable for sailing on the sea. The weather is cool and the moon is high and the stars are bright, which is the most conducive to sailing." "I believe you." John didn't answer the question, he was obviously lazy and acted very rationally. In terms of shame, Garp was definitely among the best. "Now that everything is almost ready, let's go to sea." With a wave of his hand, Garp boarded the warship magnificently, and everyone else followed suit. Soon, a large warship sailed out of the port of the headquarters base and ran into the boundless sea. After boarding Garp's warship, John truly understood Garp's dilly-dallying. He was obviously going to sea with a mission, but he didn't seem to be in a hurry at all and sailed slowly and leisurely. It was not until Delog explained to John that he understood that it was not that Garp was inefficient, but that their mission goals were not so easy to determine this time, and they needed intelligence support from the Navy headquarters. Before the opponent's position is determined, the sailing speed will naturally not increase. And according to Dorag, when it comes to facing pirates, Garp's efficiency is definitely at the forefront of the Shanghai Navy headquarters. Not only is the efficiency high, but the success rate is also the same. John has never met Garp before and doesn't know what Garp's situation is, but since even Dorag, a person who has always been dissatisfied with his father, said this, it means that Garp does not have any problems in this regard. Just sailing on the sea like this, John felt that it was too boring. He couldn't use his abilities freely on the ship, so he could only practice his physical skills on the deck. "John, you can't train like this." John was practicing the sixth form of Navy. Suddenly, Garp came over and shook his head. "I said, you young people, why are you like old men? Your speed is slow and your strength is not good. If you train like this, your progress is too slow. Then how should I practice?" John looked at Garp in confusion. He knew that Garp was an expert in this field, so naturally he would not question it, but instead asked for advice. Garp ordered Dorag. "Dorag, take off the things on your body and give them to John." Dorag immediately frowned and asked, "Dad, John has never been trained like this. You will hurt him if you practice like this. It hurts your head." Garp slapped him in the face, but Dorag dodged it sharply. "You are a kid who was trained like this by me. John is better than you at the same age. If you don't put more pressure on him, how can you make progress?" Although Garp usually laughs and laughs, but when he is serious, he is still very serious. He knows his intention of handing John over to him, not only to let him take John to learn a lot, but also to temper him. John. Of course, Garp would not refuse Crane's request. In addition, he liked John, so he decided to train John well. "All right." Dorag gave John a look that asked for blessings, making John feel uneasy. What are these two father and son doing? Why do they feel like they are joining forces to deceive me? John is really worried. I saw Delog unbuttoned, revealing his strong muscles. On his body, he was wearing a special vest. He took it off, and then took off the things on his wrists and ankles. Boom. Although Dorag did not replay it, the things still made a dull impact when they were placed on the deck. John's heart skipped a beat. He recognized it. It was a weight, and it was quite heavy. Dorag actually carried the weight with him. Cap pointed to the weights on the deck and said, "This is the weight is so, John, you bring them up." John walked to the weight and reached for the vest, only to feel a sudden weight, misty grass. He raised his head and looked at Dorag, the meaning in his eyes was very clear. Delog smiled slightly and said, "It's not very heavy. Add it up, it only weighs 3 tons. You monster." John's eyes jumped. After so long training and improvement, the 3-ton weight is still a lot of pressure for him. After all, the 3-ton weight worn on the body is completely different from the 3-ton weight of the training equipment. Carrying 3 tons of weight with you, is this something a normal person can do? What are you looking at? Put it on quickly, it's just this little weight, what does it mean? Garp scolded from the side. John had no choice but to put them on one by one, and put the 3 tons of weight on his body. Although John's legs did not tremble, he was still sweating on his forehead, feeling that the pressure was too much. Weight bearing is the most basic foundation for physical exercise and physical training. You have to train in this state to be effective. Garp nodded with satisfaction. If it were an ordinary person, he would definitely not encourage others to do so. Otherwise, he might ruin others. Dorag carries weights with him, but that's because Dorag has been trained like this since he was a child, but this is John's first time. But he knew John well and knew that John had special abilities and was not afraid of injury or physical exertion, so he dared to practice like this. Weight bearing is the foundation, speed and strength are the key. From now on, you should no longer practice the 6 poses. John moved his inflexible hands and feet and asked, if I don't practice the 6 poses, what should I practice? Practice boxing and kicking. Practice boxing and kicking. John looked confused, not understanding what Garp meant. Garp said, punch and kick, next, you practice this. Today is the first day. Well, let's punch 10,000 times and kick 10,000 times. Remember, you must use all your strength. 10,000 times. 10,000 punches and kicks were nothing to John, but that was without weight. But now, he is carrying a 3-ton load and has to punch and kick 10,000 times with all his strength. It's not that simple. Hurry up, why are you still standing there? Garp yelled loudly. All right. John was helpless. He realized that he was on a pirate ship. Although it was a good thing that Garp helped him train, was it necessary to be so violent as soon as he got on? Ho, ho. Seeing John immediately start pumping his fists, Garp nodded with satisfaction, then walked to the lounge chair next to him and lay down, eating the crunchy senbei leisurely. After throwing hundreds of punches, John felt that his arms were extremely sore. Without any weight, his physical strength allowed him to throw thousands of punches in a row without much effort. But now, after throwing hundreds of punches, the speed was still very slow, which already made his arms extremely sore, and the speed of punching was getting slower and slower. Don't worry, take your time. Anyway, by this time tomorrow, you will have completed 10,000 punches and kicks. Don't injure yourself just to finish in a hurry. John didn't hear Garp's shouting, and was still pumping his fist hard. It was already night, and the warship was peaceful, except for the sound of John pumping his fist. The other Navy soldiers on the warship also looked at John curiously. They all just met John today, and they all wanted to see how capable John was, and he even asked their Lieutenant General Garp to teach him personally. Dorag, how long do you think he can last? Garp looked at John, who was pumping his fist seriously, and asked his son Dorag. Dorag didn't even think about it and answered directly, get down when you're tired. Lie down when you're tired. So powerful? Garp asked in surprise. Dorag said, in terms of the level of effort among students in the same period as me, only Sakaski can compare with John. Once these two start training, they are like madmen. Despite his young age, John is more self-disciplined than anyone I've ever met. I've been in the same dormitory with him for so long, and I rarely see him slacking off. To put it bluntly, this kid seems to have a tendency to be. It's like a persecution paranoia, thinking about improving myself all the time, for fear that one day I will meet a powerful opponent. It's interesting. Who did you learn this from? Persecution paranoia. Garp was very surprised. It's just him. Dorag nuzzled in the direction of John. After spending a long time in the same dormitory with John, Dorag also learned a lot of new adjectives. Let's go to bed and let him practice here alone. Let him rest when he is tired. Garp yawned and then went back to the cabin to rest. Dorag looked at John, who was still trying to punch, and turned and left. Now, he has experienced everything John has experienced. The warship became even quieter. Apart from the fact that it was still moving, there were only a few soldiers responsible for reconnaissance on the deck. The rest of the soldiers went back to rest, and the only one who was still busy was John. After throwing more than 2,000 punches, John could no longer hold on and sat on the deck, breathing heavily. He is too tired. Both arms felt like they were useless. Every movement caused pain. I can't continue practicing. John looked at his arms and knew he couldn't continue practicing like this, otherwise he would have problems with his arms. Looking up at the crescent moon, if it was during the day, he could use photosynthesis to quickly recover his injuries and physical strength, but now it was night and photosynthesis could not be carried out. Although respiration could also be restored, the recovery speed was not as fast as during the day. John didn't go back to the cabin, he just lay on the deck and slowly fell asleep. Early the next morning, Garp was surprised to see John continuing to punch on the deck. This kid is indeed a monster. He was already so exhausted last night, and he actually started exercising again today. Can he recover so quickly? As for John, who ate the plant-based devil fruit, his recovery speed is indeed much faster than that of ordinary people. He rested for a few hours last night, and after the sun came out in the morning, his body carried out photosynthesis, and he recovered very quickly. After eating enough food for 3 people, John started his exercise again. In one morning, John had punched 10,000 times, and then started kicking exercises. Hey, have you noticed that this kid is obviously more energetic during the day than last night? Last night he threw more than 2,000 punches, and he was already dead. This morning, he actually threw the remaining 7,000 punches, and not as tired as last night. Garp discovered the unexpected situation and said to his lieutenant and son Dorag in surprise. The deputy general frowned and said, "It's indeed strange. Lieutenant John has an excellent physique and his recovery speed is several times that of ordinary people. But there is indeed a clear difference between this morning and last night." Dorag was not surprised. I have known for a long time that John is indeed stronger during the day than at night. Although I don't know the specific reason, it must be related to his fruit ability. Although the technological level of this world is not very low, the reaction of photosynthesis has not been studied yet. Naturally, it cannot explain that John, as a vegetative person, can perform photosynthesis to quickly absorb light energy, enhance energy, and restore himself. This kid is indeed crazy. I originally thought he couldn't hold on, but he turned out to be even better than I expected. Carrying 3 tons of weight and performing high-intensity exercise is really unbearable for most people. Even people in this world generally have relatively good physical fitness, but no matter how good their physical fitness is, there are limits. John has never conducted such training. According to Garp's idea, he wants John to get familiar with it for 2 days first, and then it should be easier. Unexpectedly, John skipped the adaptation process and quickly entered the state. I don't know what kind of fruit he ate. Can plant-based devil fruits also enhance a person's physical fitness and recovery? In Garp's view, aren't plants all fragile? Why did John, who ate the plant-based devil fruit, have an enhanced physique and an exaggerated recovery speed? For 3 consecutive days, John has been training repeatedly, becoming more and more accustomed to it and becoming more and more relaxed. Tisk, tisk, this kid is indeed a monster, Xiaohei is right. Garp couldn't help but admire John's progress. In just a few days, John had gradually become familiar with weight-bearing, and he also added some appropriate training on top of punching and kicking. But Garp also discovered that John was obviously in 2 different states during the day and night. During the day, especially when the sun was shining, he was obviously at the monster level. At night, although it is still very strong, it is much worse than its state during the day. This huge gap made Garp very confused, and in the end he could only agree with Dorig's statement that it was the ability of the devil fruit. After John got used to this kind of weight-bearing exercise, Garp made it more difficult for John. In this way, John trained under Garp for several days. After 7 or 8 days, the Navy headquarters finally determined the specific whereabouts of the Babao Navy and informed Garp using a phone bug, causing Garp, who had been leisurely, to immediately speed up. The 8th Treasure Navy led by Qingjiao also made their way into the New World and had battles with Whitebeard, Roger and other pirate groups. Of course, with the strength of the 8th Treasure Navy, it was impossible to be their opponent. But even so, the Babao Navy's momentum is not weak, and it is quite famous in the New World. The 8th Treasure's Navy appeared in the West Sea. They diverted to the West Sea and took the windless zone. Although the Babao Navy has been roaming the Grand Line, in fact, their roots are in the Kingdom of Flowers, which is located in the West Sea. The Babao Navy led by Qingjiao returned to the West Sea for some reason and was captured by the Navy. Discovered by this department. The warship quickly changed its course and headed towards the West Sea, but Garp actually asked the warship to take the windless zone, which surprised John. Having been in the Navy for such a long time, John naturally knows that the Navy has not yet used Sea Tower Stone on warships. Although the current Navy warships have their own power, if they want to pass through the windless zone, they will definitely be affected by the Sea King type attack. John, do you know why I want to take the windless zone? Garp asked John with a smile. John shook his head in confusion. Garp smiled and said, of course it is for you. Although it is effective to practice hard like you, it is definitely not as good as actual combat. Walking in a windless zone, you will definitely encounter a large number of Neptune-like attacks along the way. For you, but it's a good opportunity. John's expression changed, and he said in surprise, you want me to deal with the Sea Kings? Of course, ha 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 ha, John, I'm so kind to you, I've found you such a good training opportunity. Garp laughed. Garp smiled happily, but John was not happy. Just kidding, the windless zone is the base camp of the Neptunes, where countless Neptunes gathered. Don't look at those people in anime who cut down Neptunes like melons and vegetables, but in fact it's not that easy at all. There are also powerful Neptunes among them, not to mention there are so many Neptunes in the windless zone. If they swarm them, no matter how strong they are, it will be difficult for them to withstand them. As strong as Rayleigh, when he swam through the windless zone alone, he almost became the food of the Neptunes. John didn't think that he could face the Neptunes in the windless zone alone. Lieutenant General Garp, you think too highly of me. John smiled bitterly. Captain immediately scolded. You kid, have you backed down before this has even started? Show up some courage, I worked much harder than you back then. John said depressedly. I am not shrinking, but I am self-aware. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. Training is important, but safety is more important. What nonsense. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll let you have a taste of the iron fist I love. Garp raised his fist and stared at John fiercely. If you say another word, I will crush you. Nima. Facing Garp's threat, John was truly speechless. He knew Garp was definitely capable of doing such a thing. After thinking about it for a while, John decided to fight the Neptune type instead of Garp's fists. Little did they know, this was the beginning of the nightmare. The few days after entering the windless zone were John's nightmare. 24 hours a day, he only had 4 hours of sleep. The rest of the time, he was fighting the Neptunes. Although there are many Neptunes in the windless zone, they are not actually so numerous. This is entirely because Garp deliberately fired cannons, attracting a large number of Neptunes, and then asked John to deal with them. Many times John was in danger. With the help of Garp and others, he was not seriously injured, but he was also injured in many places. If it weren't for his super recovery ability, he wouldn't have been able to survive. It took 10 days. The distance that could have been covered in 3 or 4 days was actually taken several times longer. These few days were definitely the most exciting days in John's life. Although it was not life-threatening, it still made him extremely exhausted. After all, he was carrying a 3-ton load and fighting for his life against the Neptune. The ordinary Neptunes were fine, but many Neptunes over 100 meters tall had rough skin and thick flesh, which made John suffer a lot. He relied on Garp's iron fist several times to defeat those Neptunes. I remember another time, too many Neptunes were attracted, and the warship almost sank. Even with the combined efforts of Garp and everyone on the warship, it took a long time to clear out those Neptunes and save the warship. John had never seen so many Neptunes before. It was so crazy that after leaving the windless zone, he collapsed from exhaustion. Even photosynthesis and a large amount of food could not support him. Dad, you are too crazy. Dorag carried the sleeping John back to the room. After coming out, he said to Garp. In the past few days, he had witnessed John's madness with his own eyes. The better John performed, the more pressure his father, Garp, put on him. Even he had never been treated like this back then. Garp had a rare serious look on his face. I'm pushing him to his limit. This kid is really beyond my expectations. Zepha is right. John is really talented. His sight, knowledge, and appearance are domineering. Even I can't compare to him. It was because of this domineering power that he was able to persevere and kill so many Neptunes. These days, in addition to seeing Jon's willpower and resilience, what shocked him the most was how domineering Jon was. He is also one of the top strong men in the world, but he has rarely seen such powerful domineering power as Jon. In his impression, only Roger can match it. This also made Garp understand that being born with the domineering color of seeing and hearing is more rare and practical than being born with the domineering color of the Overlord. "Jon, you're finally awake." As soon as Jon opened his eyes, he heard Dorig's voice. "What's wrong with me?" Jon patted his head, feeling a little dizzy, and asked doubtfully. Delog immediately said, "You have been sleeping for 2 days and 2 nights. If it weren't for your condition, I would be really worried that something would happen to you." "Did I sleep for 2 days and 2 nights? Jon was surprised, he had never slept for so long before. "Yes, it can be seen that you were really too tired, that's why you slept for such a long time," Dorag said. "Have we reached the West Sea yet?" "Yes, on the way to find the Babao Navy." Jon struggled to stand up. After a while, he already felt better and his head was not as dizzy as before. "When I move my body again, although there is still some soreness and numbness, it is no longer that intense and does not affect my movements." "Jon, your recovery speed is really amazing. You have completely recovered from so many injuries so quickly." Dorag was very envious of Jon's recovery power. Before Jon went to sleep, he had a lot of wounds on his body, but when he woke up, the injuries had basically recovered. He didn't need any medicine at all and he recovered on his own. Jon smiled. He also knew his own recovery ability quite well. Unless it was a serious injury, he could recover quickly from minor injuries. Even if he is seriously injured, he can recover quickly by absorbing the life energy of plants. In terms of battery life and recovery, he is still very capable. After regaining consciousness, Jon ate enough food for 7 or 8 people by himself. After eating, he felt refreshed all over his body. Jon, who was very familiar with his body, could clearly feel his progress, and his physique and strength had improved a bit. This made him very emotional. Although the bloody battle with the Neptunes in the windless zone made him miserable, it was undeniable that he would progress much faster than training alone. But that kind of training is indeed too dangerous. If it weren't for Garp, a big killer, by his side, he might have died countless times. Although the method is good, it is not practical. It is impossible to have such a strong person to protect you at any time. Not long after he woke up, Garp also came to see Jon. Seeing that Jon was fine, he immediately laughed and joked with Jon. Although his suffering during this period was caused by Garp, Jon did not have any resentment but was very grateful. He was able to make such progress only because Garp helped him. After resting for a long time, Jon couldn't bear to start training again. This kid, with his hard work and talent, is destined to be successful in the future. Garp greatly admired Jon's efforts. As the world's top player, he knew the importance of hard work and talent, and Jon was lacking in both. It was only a matter of time before he became a strong player. After entering the West Sea, Garp's efficiency improved a lot. The day after Jon woke up, he found the Babao Navy. After finding the Babao Navy, Garp immediately led his soldiers to fight with the Babao Navy led by Qingzhou. Putting aside the last time Garp escorted them and had a distance duel with Roger, this was Jon's first time Garp fought against a strong man, and he was also a big pirate with a bounty of more than 500 million Baileys. The green pepper of Cone 30 years ago is not comparable to the plot 2 years later. Green Pepper, who is still in middle age, is at his peak and has very strong combat power. He started a battle with Garp alone. The duel between the 2 strong men was huge. Although Jon also joined the others to fight against the Babao Navy, he still focused part of his attention on the duel between these 2 strong men. There is no shortage of strong men among the Babao Navy, but most of them are blocked by the generals under Garp. Jon's opponent is a swordsman who is not weak in strength. Jon, whose physical skills have been improved, is not at all inferior even when facing a swordsman with strong attacks. He also relies on his own fruit ability to gradually gain the upper hand and force the opponent into a panic. This battle did not last long. When the Iron Head Kung Fu of Koniger Qingzhou was defeated by Garp's Iron Fist, the battle was over. The other members of the 8th Treasure Navy were defeated one by one. The Navy achieved final victory. According to convention, after a big pirate like Qingjiao is captured, he should be imprisoned in Impel Down City Prison. But then, John saw something different. Not long after they captured the Babao Navy, the king of the Flower Country in the West Sea approached Garp, hoping that Garp would let the Babao Navy go. What surprised John was that Garp actually let go of the Babao Navy led by Qingjiao, and received a large amount of compensation from the Kingdom of Flowers. This surprised John very much. The Babao Navy led by Qingjiao was a pirate force and had done quite a lot of evil. However, they caught such pirates and finally let them go. This is not what John imagined as naval justice. There is a difference. Do you think it's incredible? Dorag, who had always been concerned about John, noticed John's shock and said to him, "The world is like this. Although the Navy is burdened with justice and eradicates pirates, it can still compromise with pirates in the face of absolute interests. If you release the Babao Navy, you can get the support of the Kingdom of Flowers, but if you capture the Babao Navy, the Navy will not get more benefits. In this case, if you were the Marshal of the Navy, what would you choose?" Quote. John glanced at Delag. This guy really dared to speak. Isn't the adult world all about interests? Do you think I don't understand? Dorag said casually. Hey, John, I didn't realize that you could actually say such a thing. John was speechless. Do you think I am a 3-year-old child? If you can't even see through this, how can you still mess around? Delag chuckled and said, I used to think you would be like Sakaski, but now it seems that you are much smoother than him. The release of the Babao Navy not only acted as a deterrent, but also brought tangible benefits. This is the best thing for the Navy, but they have forgotten that those who were harmed by the Babao Navy, they the most innocent. Listening to Dolag's emotion, John keenly sensed Dolag's dissatisfaction with the Navy. The future leader of the Revolutionary Army may have already seen through the inside of the Navy and the world government, and has begun to make moves. John knew about Dolag's future, but he would not stop it, because in his opinion, even if there was no Delag, the Revolutionary Army would appear, not to mention that Delag was not something he could stop. Moreover, the existence of the Revolutionary Army is not necessarily a bad thing. At the very least, it can make the top leaders of the world government and those high-ranking celestial dragons realize that the world has changed and people who dare to resist them have appeared. Just like what is said in the anime, this era has begun to go berserk. There is only one thing he has to do, and that is to make himself stronger, so strong that he is not afraid of being beaten. Maybe it's not the Navy that's wrong, but the world. With a world government like the Celestial Dragons and the Navy as a subordinate organization, it would be difficult not to be assimilated. Dorag's pupils shrank suddenly and he looked at John in shock. John's words made him feel like a confidant. John, what do you mean? John felt Dorag's hot eyes, his heart skipped a beat, and he quickly said, it's nothing, just a moment of emotion. Although he didn't hate the existence of the Revolutionary Army, it didn't mean that he wanted to be one of them. He didn't want to be targeted by Dorag. Isn't life in the Navy not good? Why can't he think about it and become a revolutionary soldier? He does not have the grand ambitions and ideals of Dorag. John, have you seen how powerful I am? After everything was settled, Garp took a dominant step and showed off to John with great pride. Dorag on the side couldn't bear to look at you. You, a vice admiral, ran up to John and felt so proud. John was also dumbfounded. Garp's character was really interesting. To describe it in one word, it was pure heart. It would be impossible for anyone of his age to do such a thing, but Garp could do it, and it was very natural and not annoying at all. Giving a thumbs up, John sincerely praised, awesome, Lieutenant General Garp's punch is really powerful. Then the green pepper of the cone, known as the strongest iron head skill, was not destroyed by your punch. Wah ha ha ha. Listening to John's praise, Garp was even more proud, with a proud look on his face, and even patted John on the shoulder. You still have some knowledge, aren't my fists very powerful? As long as you train according to my method, even if you can't reach my level, you will become the #1 figure in the sea in the future, but it will be much stronger than your devil fruit ability. John rolled his eyes. Garp was too proud. He admitted that Garp's iron fist was unparalleled, but it didn't mean that his ability was inferior. He felt that once his abilities were developed, his potential would definitely be stronger, and he might not be able to surpass Garp in the future. General. Now that you've come to Shihai, don't be in a hurry and take a nice stroll here. Garp is a master who will not treat him badly. Although this mission is over, he has not thought about leaving immediately. Instead, he plans to stay in Shihai and take a good stroll. The boss, Garp, has decided, and naturally no one below will object. In the days that followed, John saw Garp's true nature as a foodie. Every time he passed by the island, he would go to the island to find delicious food. The key was to take someone with him every time. He never gave money to eat, but only his subordinates. People pay. After John followed them a few times, he lost interest and stayed on the warship or on the island to exercise. In the blink of an eye, more than a month passed. John finally understood why Garp didn't want to be a general or serve the celestial dragons. I'm afraid it was only part of the reason. The more reason was probably for freedom. If you become a naval admiral, how can you have as much freedom as you do now? You cannot go back to the Navy headquarters or contact the headquarters for 2 months, and just run around on your own. But John does envy Garp's state of life. Perhaps Garp's living state makes him more free. It's just that he understands better that Garp can have such freedom entirely because of his strong strength. If he is not strong enough, how can he have such freedom? When passing an island again, John got off the warship and came to an empty coast of the island. During this period of time, he had been practicing physical skills under Garp's guidance, and he had done much less training on his fruit abilities. Just as Garp was away, he decided to find an open place to practice his fruit abilities. Standing on a huge rock, John first used his ability to create a tree several meters high, and then controlled the tree to change its shape. I saw that this tree changed under John's control, and the branches on the tree slowly shortened. John's face turned red, and after a moment, he exhaled heavily. Oh, it still failed. It shouldn't be. I can easily control the trees and shrink the branches. But why is it so difficult to turn the trees into human shapes? It turns out that he wanted to turn the tree he created into a wooden man, imitating Senju Hashirama's wood release technique. When he thought about it, this shouldn't be that difficult, but when he actually put it into practice, he found that it was not the case at all. John, who has tried many times, has so far been unable to accurately create a wooden man. No, that's not the case. He can also make small wooden figures, but when he wants to make large wooden figures, he fails every time. Either the form is wrong and he cannot control the attack, or he is too fragile and cannot achieve the strength and flexibility he wants. You must know that it is very easy for him to control trees to turn into planks, wooden spines, etc., but why is it so difficult to make large wooden figures? After experimenting and summarizing again and again, John always felt that something was wrong. Even if he could make the wooden man take shape a few times, the wooden man after taking shape was not as powerful as he thought. It was not much different from ordinary trees. What is going on? Is there something missing? But what is missing? Unable to create the wooden man he wanted, John knew which link must have gone wrong, but he couldn't figure out which link was wrong. While John was thinking about how to develop the wooden man technique, several teenagers were walking towards his location. Hey, Shanks, have you really thought about it? You want to go to sea with us? We are going to be pirates, not just playing house. No, I have to go. I also want to be a pirate. I want to be the freest pirate. There were 5 teenagers in total, all of whom looked young. The oldest looked about 17 or 18 years old, while the youngest was only about 1.45 meters tall and looked to be about 10 years old at most. And what these young men said was even more shocking. They were going to be pirates at such a young age. Shanks, you are only 9 years old. Even if you are quite a pirate, you have to wait a few years before you start. You are so young and you will be a drag on us. Yes, Shanks, you are still too young. When we become famous in a few years, we will come back to take you. I don't believe you. If you go to sea without me, I will report you and let the Navy arrest you. Oh, Shanks, you are so cowardly, you even think about reporting us. If I hadn't seen that you were still young, I would have given you a good beating. Shanks, please be sensible and stay out of the way. Hey, you still beat me. I beat you just fine, but you are so much bigger than me, you can't even beat me, and you have the nerve to say you won't take me with you. Without me, you will be caught by the Navy soon. Quote, Shanks, you really deserve a beating. I can't beat you. Before, I gave in to you because I thought you were young. Believe it or not, I'm going to let you see my true strength now. Come on, challenge me to a duel if you can. Hey, I still don't believe it. Why are you dancing? Several teenagers were arguing as they walked, which could be heard from their conversations. These teenagers were preparing to go to sea to become pirates, but there was an internal conflict. The youngest among them wanted to go with them, but the others did not take him, so there was an argument. Okay, why are you two arguing? I'm telling you. Wait, there's a navy ahead. Suddenly, a young man screamed and pointed forward. The other young men were so frightened that they quickly found cover to hide and looked forward. Hiss, it's really a navy. How come we have a navy here? Several teenagers were very nervous when they saw that there was actually a navy in the place where they were planning to go to sea. Look at how scared you guys are. We're just a navy man. How dare you to go out to sea and become pirates? The youngest boy glanced at his companions with contempt and made merciless satire. Shanks, I think you are really looking for trouble. Be honest, otherwise we will be really rude to you. The eldest boy snorted in dissatisfaction. Now that the enemy is facing us, the internal situation is still unstable. How can this be possible? Don't worry, let's see what's going on. The Navy won't come to us for no reason. Their island is not a wealthy place. Under normal circumstances, the Navy will not come here. Several teenagers were very surprised by the sudden appearance of the Navy. John, who was immersed in developing his abilities, did not notice that there were several teenagers not far away from him who were secretly watching him. Unable to create the wooden man he wanted, John could only give up temporarily and instead took out the seeds Dorag gave him. Try the power of these seeds. For John, plants can be created without seeds. However, having seeds saves time and effort. Moreover, many plants cannot be produced without being exposed to them, so he needs seeds for planting. Generating seeds is very simple for John, who has the ability. He spilled more than a dozen seeds at once and quickly activated his ability. I saw that after the seeds fell to the ground, they grew rapidly. Some bloomed, some sprouted green teeth, and some looked strange. After a few seconds, except for 2 of the dozen or so seeds that had not grown, the rest had turned into mature plants, and each of them was different. The 2 dead seeds were indeed unable to reproduce. The rest are growing normally. There are 3 types of flowers and several grass plants. Most of the others are trees. Observing these plants carefully, the tallest one is a big tree, about 10 meters in height. This is a tree that John has never seen before. It is similar to camphor wood and is not a rare species, but John has indeed never seen it before in this world. The other trees are all different. Although John has never seen them, they are not much different from the trees he can create, and they are not of much help to him. The rest of the grass plants hid were mostly weeds. There were 2 types of purple and blue grasses, but apart from being pretty, they were basically not very aggressive. John was not very satisfied with the 3 types of flowering plants. If he wanted to be a gardener, these plants might have some uses and could be used for decoration. But the problem is, what John lacks is not these. What he lacks is powerful plants, or plants with special abilities. He also sowed the remaining seeds and began to use his power to promote growth. Various strange-shaped plants grew around him, and John identified them one by one. In the end, John screened and found that there were not many plants that were useful to him, only 3 kinds, one of which was a flower with paralyzing toxins. When it blooms, if you get close to it, the pollen will be emitted, which will paralyze people, and in severe cases, they will be unable to move. Another big tree, under John's encouragement, actually grew to more than 20 meters, and John felt that this was not its limit. What makes John think it is useful is that it can grow a large number of branches, which is very similar to a willow tree, but has more branches and is tougher. It can play a big role in group battles. There is also a fruit tree that can grow fruit when mature. It is a fruit that John has never seen before. It is the size of an adult's fist. One tree can grow a large number of fruits. This tree can be used as food, so it can play a certain role. In fact, John can produce several types of fruits like this, such as apple trees, pear trees, peach trees, etc. These fruit trees are quite useful, but because the upper limit is very low, they are not very aggressive and are relatively easy to create. Although the seeds Delog gave him increased his plant inventory a lot, the increase in combat power provided by him was relatively limited. Sure enough, powerful plant seeds are not so easy to collect. Now John is not qualified to go to sea alone. When he has that strength and qualifications, he vows to visit places with more virgin forests and look for plants that can help him. As far as he knew, there was no shortage of towering trees and powerful plants in the world of One Piece, but they had not been discovered yet. John, who was immersed in his own world, had no idea how much his actions had shocked others. You all saw that marine, is he a monster? One of the several teenagers pointed in the direction of John, trembling all over. The place was already covered by various plants. Before that, it was a deserted place with only vast rocks. Obviously, all these plants were created by the Navy. The oldest boy swallowed hard. Yes, is he really a monster? Are all navies so powerful? Several teenagers looked at each other, and they all saw deep fear in each other's eyes. If we go to sea, we won't encounter such a powerful navy, right? A young man suddenly asked. As soon as these words were spoken, the other teenagers trembled in their hearts. The thought that if they became pirates, they would have to face such a monster navy. Their immature minds were very frightened. Look at you guys, how can you become pirates with your little courage? Shanks, the youngest, responded to the merciless ridicule of several of his companions. Shanks, you really deserve a beating today. Several teenagers were pointed out by Shanks, and they were both embarrassed and angry and yelled at Shanks. Aren't you pretty good at bragging? If you have the ability, go beat that Navy man down. If you can do it, we will take you to sea together. Shanks snorted disdainfully. If I had that ability, why would I need you to take me? I can go to sea alone. If you want to lie to me, you are still far behind. Although Shanks is young, he is very smart and very talented. Several teenagers older than him cannot beat him. Although Shanks didn't know how powerful this mysterious navy was, he knew that he would definitely not be able to defeat him. Several teenagers muttered a few words, ignored Shanks, and gathered together to discuss. What should we do? With this navy here, we can't go to sea at all. But our ship is hidden over there. If we don't go this way, we will have no ship. How can we go to sea without a ship? Then we just have to wait until this navy leaves before we leave. Yes, that's it. We're not in a hurry anyway, and this navy won't be able to stay long. Then let's do it, hide it and wait. After sitting for a long time, John stood up and walked to the beach. Looking at the sea water in front of him, he suddenly released his domineering aura. John, who was releasing his domineering power, originally wanted to sense the plants in the sea, but suddenly he sensed that there were still a few breaths not far away from him. From the voices, they should be just a few ordinary people. He had just been concentrating on studying his abilities, but he didn't pay attention to the surrounding situation, so that he didn't notice anyone approaching him within a kilometer. The hockey of wisdom and knowledge is like this. It is not omnipotent, nor is it a passive skill. It cannot be turned on all the time. Once the mood fluctuates violently, or when one is concentrating on one thing, the perception ability will be greatly weakened. However, after discovering that he was an ordinary person, John ignored him and began to sense the plants in the sea. As a world where most of the places sea, John naturally knows the plants in the sea, but the plants in the sea are different from the plants on land. The most common ones are algae. It's just that although John can control these algae plants, their growth is very poor. If they fight on the seabed, they may be able to have a certain effect. But if you want to use algae plants in the sea to deal with people on land, it is almost impossible. Even if John controls them with all his strength, it will be difficult for them to grow very big. However, the deeper the seabed, the more plants there are, and there are even many large plants that are not weaker than those on the ground. It's just that even if John has the hockey of seeing and hearing and can communicate with them, it is almost impossible to control them from such a long distance unless he can sneak into the sea. This is also the reason why John rarely uses sea plants. He controls plants. The closer the distance, the greater the power. If the distance is too far, the lethality will be much weaker. Under the control of John's ability, the sea plants near the seaside grew rapidly, and soon, patches of green plants were seen floating on the sea surface. The vitality of these algae plants is stronger than that of many terrestrial plants, and they can control their growth faster. What is the principle behind this? There is a big difference between plants in the sea and plants on land. Although John has learned some biology, he is only half experienced. How can he understand the difference between these two types of plants? He can only summarize based on his own feelings. He found that controlling the growth of plants in the sea was obviously easier than controlling the growth of land plants, and plants in the sea also grew faster and higher. Of course, this is not absolute. Some common terrestrial plants grow faster than aquatic plants. If I fell into the sea, would I be able to survive and move like an aquatic plant? Suddenly, such a ridiculous idea came into John's mind, and then his eyes became extremely bright. As we all know, devil fruit users lose the ability to swim. Once they fall into the sea, unless they have special abilities, they can only wait to be drowned. Drought Jack, one of the 3 disasters under Kaido in the future, did not drown because he had fish-man blood and could breathe in water. Since Jack, who has fish-man blood, can do it, John feels that he may not be able to do it. After all, he is now a plant-type ability user. Falling into the sea just loses strength and cannot swim, but it does not mean that he has lost his ability. Plants can also survive in the sea. As long as you ensure enough aerobic exercise, you should be fine for a period of time. You should find time to develop this ability. Maybe it will be of great use in the future. It's just that such an experiment cannot be attempted easily. Someone needs to be there to help him, otherwise he may not succeed and drown himself first. Sure enough, if you want to make your abilities more powerful, you need a strong mental ability. John was quite emotional. The ability of devil fruit is indeed interesting. Although a big brain cannot be infinitely developed, it is definitely easier to develop than those with rigid thinking. Looking at the algae plants floating on the sea, John said with emotion, "For others, plants are just plants, but for me, plants are alive and they are easier to get along with than humans." As he spoke, John suddenly froze, and a flash of inspiration flashed through his mind. Vitality, life, yes, why am I so stupid? I didn't think of such a simple principle. A sudden flash of inspiration made John want to understand why the wooden people he had made before could never meet his requirements, because the wooden people he made were not life at all. The wooden man technique that Senju Hashirama learned from the wood release license, the wooden man obviously has vitality, as if it is alive, so it can attack according to Senju Hashirama's thoughts. The wooden man he created could only be regarded as a model and had no vitality at all. Although he could control it, the difference was simply huge. If I could inject consciousness into the wooden man and make it alive, would it be easier to control and manufacture it? It is very difficult to achieve this, but John knows that the pirate world has this ability. Life is returned. John remembered that there is a life returning skill in One Piece. As long as you inject consciousness into various parts of the body, such as the body, hair, internal organs, etc., you can freely control it. Since life return can do this, it can also inject consciousness into plants, especially plants that are made by oneself. When Lieutenant General Garp comes back, I will ask him for the cultivation method of returning life. After spending so long together, John and Garp had a very good relationship. John felt that Garp would not refuse him if he asked for the cultivation method of returning life. That's it. After making the decision, John was in a good mood, and the depression just now was gone. Hey, you haven't left yet. Are you peeking at my practice? John was slightly surprised when he sensed that those auras just now were still there with his domineering force. He was not afraid that his abilities would be imitated by others. Oops, no, that navy is coming towards us. Several teenagers who had been paying attention to John suddenly saw John walking towards them. They were all shocked and exclaimed, "It's done, we're all done." The faces of several teenagers were ashen, but Shanks, the young man, was quite calm. "What are you afraid of? We haven't even gone to sea yet. Even the Navy can't do anything to us." "That's right, we haven't gone to sea yet, why should we be afraid of the Navy?" The other teenagers were stunned. Yes, they are not pirates at all now, so what are they afraid of? Thinking of this, most of the fear in my heart was immediately reduced, but I didn't dare to turn around and run away. Shanks said, "Calm down, don't be afraid, we can't let this Navy discover our thoughts." "Yes, calm down, you idiots, calm down." "I'm calm, okay, then why are your legs shaking?" This scene was really inconsistent. Shanks, who was the youngest, actually became the backbone of several teenagers. His words seemed to have the power to exaggerate, making the other teenagers feel at ease. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.